Welcome back, and thank you once again for joining us here at Unlocking Capital for Sustainability, Transforming Asia, Mobilizing Finance at Speed and Scale. My name is Shireen Kashvani, and I'm the Chief of Staff here at EcoBusiness, and I'll be your host for the afternoon proceedings. For those of you who have joined us virtually, welcome back, and I hope you've all had a lovely lunch. We'll be moving on swiftly to the next part of the program, which is the most highly anticipated segment of today, the plenary debate. This debate has been a unique highlight of our forums, and for this year, we have chosen a topic that has been in the limelight, particularly here in the region. The motion that we'll debate today is whether regulation is needed to drive nature-positive outcomes in Asia. I'd now like to invite our moderator at large and the debate moderator for today, Augustine Andavan, onto stage. And joining him are our distinguished speakers, Romy Gaudik Den Hertog, UNEP Finance Initiative Co-Head of Nature, Dennis Wan, Head of Capital Markets APAC for CDP, Rajesh Sundaresan, co-founder of Carbon Impact Capital, and joining us virtually, we have Dr. Riza Swaga, Chairman of Indonesia Carbon Trade Association. Augustine, I'll hand the time over to you.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for making the effort to come back into the room on time. It's precisely 2:05. And this is a very precise timing debate format. So for those of you who are familiar with debates, like any other debate around the world, each side has a very precise timing. So the first thing is, as my dear MC has announced, could you kindly take out your phones and quickly vote on the motion? The production team will be flashing the QR code on the screen now. So I'm only given 60 seconds to do this. So could we all please do this? Yeah, seriously, people. But the most important thing to note here is this debate is all about you, right? The two teams here will spend the next few minutes trying to persuade you with their persuasive arguments. All right, that's two P's in the one sentence, right? Persuade you with the persuasive arguments. And I'll introduce them very quickly, but right now, they need your support. And I've got a similar copy of this in terms of having logged in to the Slido myself. So I'm seeing on my laptop, that's the reason why I have the laptop in front of me. And so I will now basically ease into the debate format. The motion before all of us today. This House believes regulation, emphasis on the word regulation, is needed to drive nature-positive outcomes in Asia. And both of you, both teams on either side, you can see it on the plasma screen in front of you, and I believe it's also being projected behind us. The motion right now, the 94% of the House says you believe regulation is needed to drive nature-positive outcomes in Asia, and there is still 6% in the room who feel otherwise. Arguing for the motion is the team on my right. Arguing against the motion is the team on my left. Could we kindly bring on the fourth speaker on the internet, please? And so with the four speakers, so today's format, I've been assured by my able production team, has been tried and tested. So we have four speakers, two on my right, two on my left, including the gentleman on the screen. Arguing, all right, for the motion is the team on my right, and I'm going to go with my first name sort of approach. And so you have the team on my right. Arguing for the motion is Dennis and Rajesh. And the team against the motion is Romy and Riza on the screen. And that Slido is still available. If you had just taken your cell phones out, you can quickly vote. And now we kick off. Debate format, as all debate formats. In the opening round, each speaker has 3 minutes. And I have this glass in front of me. I will tinkle it at the 2-minute mark. All right, that's about the best sound I can get. All right, maybe I need to drink more water and I might get a tinkle. And then after that, at the 30 seconds mark, I might do a two-ting, right? But the best thing about this production is I have a very eager audio chief who will bring the fader down precisely at the 3-minute mark. meaning your microphones will go down. So at the 3-minute mark, your microphones go down, and that's the end of the story, and then I hand over. Now, on the against the motion, ideally in the debate format is you need to rebut what the for the motion team says, so you can devote as much time as you want to go and demolish the arguments, and of course also make your case. And we will do this in the first round, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. And then we have an open Q&A, and the production team will flash up the Slido for you to punch in your questions. And if I get a signal from the production team, we will make that decision if the microphone is allowed for a question on the floor. But the microphone coming to you with a question on the floor, you have 15 seconds to put your question. And then we kill your mic, all right? So that's how tight it is. In the finish of the Q&A, in the reverse order, in the final round, against the motion will kick off 2 minutes, for the motion 2 minutes, against the motion 2 minutes, for the motion 2 minutes. And then we'll invite all of you to vote. This House believes that regulation is needed to drive nature-positive outcomes in Asia. And we have presented to both teams 4 guiding questions. Is our markets-based approach sufficient to drive the changes we need to reverse nature loss? Second question, what are some of the real-life examples where nature loss has been successfully reversed in Asia? Were they driven more by market forces, or was this achieved by regulations? Third question, in terms of regulations, what laws are needed to hold companies to account for harming nature and to drive nature-positive outcomes in Asia? And that question came up since this event started. And finally, the fourth question, have there been instances more regulations have led to worsen outcomes for nature conservation? 4 carefully crafted questions. And now to kick off, Dennis, for the motion, your 3 minutes is yours. You may choose to sit, you may choose to stand, but there's an invisible line here. Please do not cross the line over to the other side. And production team, clock starts. Kick it off, Dennis. 3 minutes, yours.
Am I on? Okay. I'll stand then. Why do we brush our teeth? As a child, you were told to brush your teeth. You didn't really know why. You just did what you were told. It took you a while before you caught up with why. That's regulation. I asked an AI chatbot today, what was the most heavily regulated country in all of ASEAN? It's Singapore. We cannot stand here, sit here in Singapore and not say that regulation is a good thing. I used to live here 12 years ago for 5 years. I used to travel around. I went to all of Southeast Asia, went to Indonesia, went to Vietnam. Traffic lights there are like a guiding suggestion. When you're trying to cross the road in the rest of Southeast Asia, then you're pretty much taking your life in your hands. Whenever I crossed the border back into Singapore, I breathed a sigh of relief. That is an example of regulation and enforcement. Are markets going to save us? Are just markets going to save us? Markets have done an awful lot of good for us. They have raised living standards. They have saved our lives in many ways. Many people have human dignity because of capitalism and markets. But 150 years of unbridled capitalism has also left us in the scientific hole that we are in. We heard all morning about the threats to nature and everything that we're facing to try and save ourselves and keep the climate under 1.5 degrees, and we're fighting a losing battle right now. So the problem with markets is that it's about greed, it's about self-interest. It's about what people can get away with. So although many good things have happened because of markets and capitalism, unbridled capitalism for 150 years has left us in the hole that we're in. Regulation is not a restriction. Regulation is a framework which can help fairness, the leveling of the playing field, so that good things can happen. And it's going back to, we might not understand everything that is happening to us. It's all a very complex landscape here. But regulation will give us the guardrails and the rules that we can play with to guide capitalism in the right direction and save the world. Thank you very much.
Well done for the motion, and you did that in 2 minutes, 45 seconds. Well done. I'll decide whether if I want to pass that extra 15 seconds to your colleague. Now, to make the case, this House believes regulation is needed to drive nature-positive outcomes. The first speaker, Romy, you have the floor. Is yours. 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. With 94% in favor of the motion and 6% against it, you can clearly see what everyone thinks here. What I want to prove with my motion is also to show that Professor Kishore, when he spoke about the UN and that people are blonde there, showed that we actually have a lot of color within us in the things that we say. I want to thank Dennis for his comments, but I don't think he said anything about nature. He spoke about brushing his teeth. I come from a different culture. I never did it. And then he spoke about capitalism, and I think we all know that Gordon Gekko is dead. You know, that was the 80s, and we're here today. So let's go to nature first. One way of feeling better about the climate crisis is looking at nature. What we see increasingly is that nature loss is a financial risk. It's also a huge opportunity, especially here in Asia, which is one of the most biodiverse regions in the world. I was in the TNFD engine room, and something we learned there, we thought this project is going to be a success, but I don't think anyone was anticipating that TNFD would be the abbreviation I hear on stages across the globe. So when we speak about the relation between public and private, we always speak about a dance, and in different parts of the world we see different dances being danced. There might be a waltz, there might be a tango, there might be line dancing in other parts of the world. So when speaking against the motion, let's start with numbers. 180 companies in Asia alone have voluntarily committed to starting TNFD reporting since the start of this year. In 5 weeks, we have COP16, and I know that there will be more announcements. So you already see that voluntary markets are working. Then the second step is that TCFD, which was started in 2015, is translated in regulation in different parts of the world. But I think the only reason why that is effective regulation is because they could really base that regulation upon the experience of market participants who've been working on that. We always say within nature that we're about 5 years behind to the climate debate, so we expect the same to happen. Then on regulation, it's not top-down, bottom-up, but we also need to look left and right. So on nature, we saw a statement of institutional investor this morning calling for companies to assess and disclose, but also Chinese stock exchanges taking steps and mandate environmental disclosure, including a double materiality approach. And then lastly, we already have a global framework and our peace treaty with nature, which is the global biodiversity framework. So to close down my case, we need to look at what type of dance we're dancing. We're not working in a vacuum, and we need to push for transparency and inspire regulators.
Thank you very much, and there you have it. The case against the motion from Romy. Thank you very much, Romy. You did it in 3 minutes, but my ever-efficient audio chief brought the microphone down. And so I'm also looking at the poll numbers, the pre-debate polls, and I'm keeping myself up to date as the numbers are actually moving. Now, to make the case for the motion, Rajesh, you have the floor. 3 minutes is yours.
Thank you. I think I'll throw my prepared speech out of the window and start with nature. So WWF published a study which said by 2080, we will lose 50 to 60% of all species in the Amazon. Okay? We've all watched the Avengers movie, and the ultimate villain we could think of was somebody who will knock off 50% of life. And guess what? We are doing better. We are knocking off 50 to 60% of life by 2080. And we are still debating whether we need regulations. And this is the Amazon. We all know what goes on in Brazil. The government changes, tighter regulations, the deforestation rates slow down. The government pulls back changes, looser regulations, millions of acres gone in a heartbeat. Without regulation, we have no hopes. And Dennis already made the point about Singapore. So I'm not going to repeat that, but let me address the other point that they made about voluntary markets. I work in voluntary markets. So our company is in voluntary carbon credits. I've spent 25 plus years in the regulated part of the world in fund management industry, so I do have a flavor of both. Again, to put numbers into context, the voluntary market size, carbon markets, is somewhere between $1 to $4 billion, depending on how you measure it. The compliance market is 800 billion to 1 trillion. When you put regulations, people spend. When you don't, they don't want to spend. The average price paid by a voluntary carbon market to protect a tree is less than 50 cents a year. And people criticize that. When those projects are done, there are Guardian articles which will come and say these projects are a fraud. Nobody wants to pay for that. But we are all sitting in wooden furnitures, most of us. And we don't think about spending hundreds of dollars to cut trees. Someone has to intervene, put a price on nature. If we don't, the market failure which has led to this mess will continue.
You still have your few more seconds, Rajesh. That was the first warning. You fine? All right, sir. Thank you very much. You're helping us to gain time. And so there you have it, the third speaker so far and the second speaker for the motion. Riza, joining us live. Riza, the floor is yours, making the case against the motion. 3 minutes is yours.
Thank you, Partner. I think it's very clear, and it's a bit tough for 6% against 94%. But I will do my best, Romy. Don't worry. So, coming from a timber experience, we have a demonstration of how successful voluntary initiatives are, which is, I think everyone knows, to sell timbers, exporting timbers, you need FSC certificate, and it's voluntary. In palm oil, you need RSPO, it's voluntary. I hate to say that a very good example is coming from my own country, Indonesia. In the last 3 years, we are putting every regulatory perspective into a very serious infrastructures of regulations. And what happened? Nothing is moving. All the already registered and certified projects being standstill, being suspended. So I think what's happening there is 3 years of Indonesia is not doing so much on saving the planet, unfortunately. But this is the case that now the new government is trying to open up the market. And I think I'll be very keen, and I'll be very fortunate also advising the new government to have that motion, that movement. So I guess my point is, this is not about how things are being regulated or not being regulated. I think there should be a combination, but I'm always believe that future generation is not so much by being told, but I think something must be coming from within, which is, I think, from the culture itself that is not always being told. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Riza. All of you seem to be able to make your cases without the need for the full 3 minutes, which is good practice because in the reverse round, it is 2 minutes, all right? So I think you're setting the scene up. Now, for the motion has basically said nothing is going to move until regulations kick in, all right? And they have cited their arguments. Look at what's happening in the world. If the regulations don't kick in, more of nature will be lost and we would never recover it. Against the motion has said, hang on, there are evidences out there and real life situations, and they've cited that things do work from the ground up, private sector driven, and there is compliance, and we live in a generation where enough of being told what to do, and we know what we need to do. And so now we go to the Slido, and we look at questions that may have been placed. And so we need you to challenge both teams. So the rules of the debate are simple. If you pose a question to one speaker, all right, then that speaker will respond, and the response timing is strictly 30 seconds. And once that 30 seconds is up, I will give the same 30 seconds to the other side so that they can also provide a response. So now we already have a question, and can I just double check? Yes, it's coming in at 1:23 p.m., so it must be for this session, all right? So James, thank you for the question. Do you agree that rules help bureaucrats make money from bribes to bypass rules and reporting? Education empowers people to restore nature for self-interest. I'm going to throw this comment to Romy. You have 30 seconds to respond.
For a long time, nature has been the elephant in the room, I would say. So I think, thank you, James, for your question. It might help indeed bureaucrats to make money from bribes, and ultimately action on nature has to come within, I would argue. So I think, thank you.
All right, well done. You did that in 20 seconds. Over to the other team. You have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Human greed is very powerful. You can take some amount of bribe, but when you have no rules, they will sell the planet. We have enough evidence of that.
All right, so let's look at the next question, if there's any. I'm going back to the live section. All right, so it looks like this approach. All right, we just have one that came in, has chosen to remain anonymous. Which came first, regulation or volunteering? My friend, this is a debate, so I mean, we can't really do that. But okay, we'll keep that for the tea break. Okay, so my production team is very efficient. They will just move it to archive, all right? So do you have an example of where a voluntary guideline has been more effective than a mandatory rule? On my right, you have 30 seconds to respond, either speaker.
I do not.
Right? That was the fastest debate I've ever done in my life. You know, you people are really making me start and stop my stopwatch, quite fast, all right? So like, over to this side, either Riza or Romy, would you like to respond?
Yeah, maybe I could come in there. I think
Go ahead, Riza.
I think high integrity is the key. I've seen how government has set rules and regulation and audit, but it's like the medieval age of auditing process, and that has to change. I think today's has been very, very excellent, and more startup coming in, disruption in the positive way coming in. That changed the whole game of auditing.
All right, thank you very much, Riza. Thank you for making that effort. But just to be fair, what this side of the house is saying is there is no example of a voluntary initiation, and that's why the answer was so short, no. So we'll move this to the archive, and let's take the next one. And thank you, production team, for being ever efficient. The comment made by the second speaker, now we will all have to guess who you're referring to. Okay, we just lost that comment. Production team, I think you're getting a bit too excited. The comment made by the second speaker is, I get to decide to move to archive. The comment made by the second speaker is size of the regulated market versus unregulated industry. The only people have made money seem to be the consultants. Oh, wow, now we're really getting exciting. I wish you had put your name to this, but can I go to this side of the house, and would you care to comment? 30 seconds.
Sure. I think, see, unless we put a price on carbon, people are not going to move, right? Because in Europe, we have a price of around $100 on your carbon footprint. Companies are now thinking about, can we do something to bring that cost down? So if you have a solution which can reduce your emissions by, bring it down to $30, $50, $80, people will do it. If not, they pay the fine. So of course, yeah, consultants make money. It doesn't matter what we do. But the reality is that has enabled EU to be a leader in terms of climate action.
All right, thank you very much for this side of the house. I'm going to give it to Romy. Would you care to respond? 30 seconds, Romy.
So I think a clear example of a voluntary market are indigenous peoples and local communities. So they comprise less than 5% of the global population, yet they protect more than 80% of remaining biodiversity. And often they don't have land titles for the land they protect or rights to the land they protect. Still they do it, and the reason they do it is that their livelihoods depend on the nature surrounding them. And I think it's very difficult to see.
All right, thank you very much, Rumi. So, no, but before I take on the next few questions, we did set a house rule among the speakers. We do not entertain acronyms, because part of the whole process of a debate is to educate the public and get more people on board. So you're really testing not just the moderator, but all four speakers. But I'm going to entertain your question. We'll move this question comment made by the second speaker to archive. How to get clarity without regulation? The VCM, and you, yes, I mean, I know, I'm just joking with them. So the VCM is a huge opportunity, also financially. How to make sure that repartition of benefits is fair without regulation? This side of the house, I'm throwing it to Riza. You have 30 seconds, Riza.
I think we have seen how over-regulating process has been counterproductive. So I think we need to appreciate what the voluntary standards has done. I know there are some cases in Kariba, for example, but it doesn't represent every project or every carbon projects. So I think we need to support that, and voluntary market needs to grow. Article 6 is a never-ending debate and never-ending argument.
Thank you very much, Riza. 30 seconds is up. You can always come back to your points in the closing arguments. This side of the house, you have 30 seconds.
I'll take it. Hello?
Yeah, can we up the mic, please? Yeah.
Hello? Hi. Okay, so real quick. That particular question was self-evident in favor of regulation. You cannot play a game without rules. There are bad regulations which have been designed poorly and have unintended effects, like the bioenergy regulations which encourage the growing and burning of crops and deforestation, etc. We're not asking for bad regulation, we're asking for good regulation. So that, I think, is the gist of the question.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you, speakers, for all working very hard to keep to time. We'll try and take more questions, because this is really the part where the audience gets to decide, are you convincing them? We'll move that to the archive, please, and we'll take this question from Jessica. Not too sure whether it's the Jessica I know, but remember the Kyoto Protocol that was supposed to regulate carbon emissions, but the CDM was a complete disaster. How will this be different? This side of the house, you have 30 seconds, either speaker.
Yeah, it is going to be challenging. I mean, there is no beating around the bush. It is going to be challenging, but we need it. And unfortunately, there is a lot of, greed lobby coming in to influence the way the regulations are going or faced. But there is no choice. We have only one planet. We can't go anywhere else. We need to figure it out.
Thank you. And I'm going to pass over the same question to Romy. You have 30 seconds to respond.
So let me be clear, I'm not against games, rules of the games. I think what I'm arguing is that regulation isn't always driving change. I think that markets can be driving change. So I think that's important. And then also going back to some of the previous points being made about the Amazon, one of the biggest threats of the Amazon is legal deforestation.
All right, and we'll have to end it there. But thank you, Romy, for making that case. And remember, you can always continue your arguments when you have the final 8 minutes to make your closing arguments. This has been a very healthy section of the Q&A, but I'm going to have to bring the Q&A to a close. We'll move that to the archive. And we have one question actually from someone who was brave enough to put their name, Shanshan Wang. The focus should be if regulation is needed to drive nature plus outcome. I'm trying to understand the question. Even with regulations, do we have the know-how? If not, does it mean it's not the drive? So reverse order. Riza, you have 30 seconds to interpret this question/comment, and the time is yours.
A bit confusing about the question, but I'll try my best. So basically, I think what my other opponent, I can say, saying just now, it's more on the how we can really give that high integrity. And I haven't seen rules and regulations from any countries that have shown that. And I think I believe that integrity comes from the voluntary standards that has been working so hard, and
Thank you
it
so much,
worked
Riza.
from the
And I
bottom.
really wanted to let you finish your sentence, but it is becoming clear now. Basically, the author of the question is saying if regulation is needed to drive nature plus outcomes, but even with the regulations, do we have the people, the technology, and the know-how to create this outcome? This side of the house, you have 30 seconds.
I think that this question is about the cliche of should we wait for perfection before we progress? We cannot let waiting for perfection get in the way of us getting started. Regulations come having been through white papers, having been through consultations, and even when the regulations are out in the wild, then they might not be quite perfect, but then they can be refined as knowledge progresses. So there's my answer, is let us not wait for perfection, let us get started.
All right, well done. And I'm just going to throw one last one in for both teams. Isn't there already a lot of nature regulation like CITES, impact assessment regulation for material sectors? What additional regulation are you advocating? This side of the house, you have 30 seconds.
The key thing I would say is put a price on carbon, put a price on our environmental footprint. That is missing. And so to put things in context, the implicit subsidy given to the oil and gas industry every year is somewhere around 5 to 7 trillion. That is explicit and implicit subsidies. The size of the voluntary market, as I mentioned, is 1 to 2 billion. So we are fighting a heavy battle against it. Key regulation should be a high carbon price.
And thank you so much for doing it in 30. Romy, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I think I want to come back to Dennis's
We'll
point.
get the mic up, please.
I want to come back to Dennis's point, speaking about the need that we need action now, and that perfect is the enemy of the good. I'm not from Singapore, I'm from the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands it takes us a very long time to get regulation. And often when the regulation comes in, it's kind of reviving something that has been dead for a long time. So I think if we want action on nature, we need it now. We don't need it in 6 years or in 60 years when there is barely any nature we can protect.
All right, thank you so much, Romy, for doing it in 30 seconds. And thank you all for your wonderful participation. We decided to try this format for this time in this debate format. And we're going to move all questions to archive and keep that. It's actually good for research. We are on the home stretch. And we'll go on the reverse order. And before Riza kicks off in the reverse order against the motion, some key points for us to bear in mind and whether we can all benefit from this and move this forward. Once again, to remind all of us, this House believes regulations is needed to drive nature-positive outcomes in Asia. But there are a lot of factors, because you look at what's happening in the world, there are a lot of players outside Asia who make things happen in Asia. And I just want to throw one spanner onto the topic. That's assuming you have government continuity. So private sector looks at 5 years. No, they look at 25, 50 years down the road. And if you look at it, Asia, the two speakers this morning kicked us off. If you have a revolving door when it comes to politics, then the rules of the game might change. So that's part of my job as a moderator. It's been a truly enjoyable journey. I had to keep staying in the middle. Did you notice I always stay in the middle and I don't look at either side? And I try to restrict myself from nodding my head because I don't want to give the impression that I'm either for any team. But both teams have made very persuasive arguments. And now to make the final case, All four speakers have 2 minutes each to kick off the home stretch and the home round. Riza, you have 2 minutes. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, Article 6. It's been what? COP 28 now? It's not yet there. I don't know if it will happen. So I think I agree on putting carbon price is the key, but integrity is more of the key, and it needs participation from the bottom. I don't think it will do otherwise. Thank you.
Riza, do you want me to pass the other 1 minute and 30 seconds over to your colleague? I think I'll do that. So Romy, if you do
Sure.
decide to use it, you can use the timing. All right, thank you, sir. And making the case for the House on this side, either speaker, you can go ahead. 2 minutes, the floor is
I'm going
yours.
to start with a confession. Augustine put enormous pressure on us before this, saying after this he's going to go and meet the Pope. So
Okay.
we have no competition here, so I'll keep it brief. But yeah, I think, see, honestly, we're all doing this debate, but the real winner out of this needs to be nature. And for that, I think we will all agree that we need, both to work together. And that's my honest view. So I'm not going to just make a point for the sake of winning a debate, but I think we need to work together, make sure that both works. But regulation definitely helps. In the voluntary market, for example, in carbon markets, I mean, a lot of Singapore companies are very conscious, but till the government introduced the tax of $25, they really didn't want to come and buy credits. I mean, that's the honest answer. So when you have a certain regulation, certain taxes or prices on carbon set up, then you start seeing even more voluntary action also coming in. They start thinking beyond it. And I also firmly believe we need to align green, greed, and good. And for that, some dose of regulation is needed. We can't rely just on voluntary action.
All right, so you did it in a minute. I'll pass the remaining minute to your final speaker for the motion. And so on this side of the House, Romy, bring it home. I'm giving you 3.5 minutes. Your clock starts now.
So I think my closing argument would be force is never fun. If somebody tells you you must do this, you'll feel less inclined to do it when somebody gives you arguments why you should be doing it and why it's beneficial for you. I've been working in the nature finance space for about a decade now, and it's been an uphill climb. I've been to sustainability managers of many financial institutions who told me, nature, yes, if it's philanthropy and donating a bit of money, but actually looking at our impact on nature, we're not doing that. And through the GBF, the Global Biodiversity Framework, through the Taskforce on Nature-related Financial Disclosures, we've seen that change coming, and that change is there. And I think as part of that movement, there will be regulation down the line, but if you're representing a financial institution, what you need to do is very simple. First, you need to measure, then you need to manage, and then you need to improve. You need to do less of the bad stuff, and you need to do more of the good stuff. And you need to talk to your colleagues across the industry, showcase and share examples, because that's where the real change is coming from. I think something we often forget is that the word economy and ecology both stem from the Greek oikos, which means our house, and our house is on fire. So we need action, whether it's regulatory or not. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Romy. Despite the time that was allocated to you, you still did it under 2 minutes. Congratulations to the team against the motion. Dennis, I'm adding the minute to your time. Take it home, sir. 3 minutes is yours.
Our esteemed opponents here have brought up the idea that voluntary action is enough. They gave up the example of TCFD being adopted as a voluntary framework. My organization actually collects data. CDP collects data, and it also collects it on an entirely voluntary basis. We have 2/3 of the listed market capitalization of the world disclosing data to CDP to feed back to the financial industry and governments and policymakers in order to make the right decisions to save nature. But the thing is that it would go faster. It does go faster if there is regulation encouraging doing the right thing. There are still plenty of players who, if you leave it to voluntary markets, then they will dodge what they need to do. And yet, voluntary action, as my colleague says, is absolutely necessary. It must go hand in hand with regulation, because another finding of CDP over the 2 decades of our existence is that by the time we have this much voluntary action, then come the regulation can be set at a higher bar, because the regulators will look and say, well, this is what everybody is doing on a voluntary basis. Anyway, we can aim higher, we can create more ambition. I'll go into some real examples of it working here. The Terry Arc landscape in Nepal and India, that is a landscape approach to saving a landscape. 65,000 hectares of land was restored there. That's 800 Singapore Botanic Gardens worth of space there. Wildlife came back through the government and the community working together, but it was regulation driven.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Grain for Green, another organization in an initiative in China, saved 28 million hectares of cropland reforested. That's 153 Singapore's worth of land that was reforested. These kind of actions were driven by regulation on top of just the sheer enthusiasm of the markets. So, in conclusion, we can't achieve nature positivity without the guardrails of regulation. I urge you to vote for our motion.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And so a round of applause for all 4 speakers. Rajesh, Romy, Dennis, and Riza joining us live. And so now comes an important task. We need to bring this debate not actually to a close, but to give our respected speakers some form of feedback. The poll is open. Kindly take out your devices, ladies and gentlemen, and cast your votes. And we will do a comparison as to what we started with before the debate started, and we'll see where we are now. I think this is the part where you all start praying. And as the moderator, I am proud to say we did this debate in record time. I am going to wait till the bell rings for this vote to be done. No, I'm going to wait till the bell rings because I've been allocated 3 minutes more. And so I think the audience is now really thinking, now this is fascinating. That's moving. It actually keeps moving. But you know, what's the good side? It's a whole lot better than 6.
I don't think we've won, but we definitely won people over, right? So I think that's pretty good.
All right. But I must respect the time that has been allocated for this debate, and I have the remaining 3 minutes on my clock to just leave you with some closing comments. Comment number 1. We could not have done this debate without your participation. So ladies and gentlemen, you truly deserve a round of applause. So for all of you in the House. Right. Second, it is evident from the format of an eco-business debate that we all got to think, reflect, and perhaps this might move you into action. The debate numbers, you know where we started, so I don't need to call up the former numbers. And now this House believes regulation is needed to drive nature-positive outcomes in Asia. I am proud to announce the winning team is, can we give the round of applause? And I do want to invite all of you in the House to give a rousing round of applause to the team that made a very hard case against the motion. So as the seconds tick away, my closing comments. I shared this on LinkedIn. Did you know that a debate is crucial because it plays a vital part in society across the planet? It encourages critical thinking. It exposes the audience present to diverse perspectives, and it helps refine ideas on a particular topic, and we all know what the topic is today. Is the debate solely about winning or losing? Well, I would argue that the broader purpose most certainly, and is evident today, extends beyond mere victory. I'm very proud to be part of the eco-business format, and I want to say this in front of all of you. Thank you so much, Jessica, for keeping this in the format. Thank you, everyone. Round of applause for the two teams again.